The story is about a boy named John who sets out to sea in a small boat to go fishing. After John had traveled some distance with his boat, he noticed that fog was covering the sea all around him. The fog was so thick that he couldn't see anything at all. He remained stuck in the same position within this fog for a long time. Suddenly, John spotted a large ship at some distance from him. The strange thing was that there were no people on such a big ship. Seeing this aroused his curiosity, and he wanted to board that ship. John tied his small boat tightly to the ship and climbed aboard the large vessel. Once inside the ship, John was astonished because everything seemed normal, yet there were no people there. What was even more surprising was that despite there being no people, there was fresh food stocked there. Even with all the evidence of human presence, there was no one there. When John turned on the engine to start the ship, he discovered that the engine was broken. Such a large ship with a broken engine, how then did it come into the deep sea? Thinking about this, John became even more amazed. So John picked up binoculars and set out to investigate inside and around the ship. John thought that perhaps the owner of the ship had gone fishing in a small boat and might be somewhere nearby. But due to the excessive fog, he couldn't see anything. Then John went back to the control room and turned on the audio messenger there. John sent a message to headquarters saying, "This ship is stuck in the sea. If any of you can hear me, please respond." After this, John decided he would return to his small boat. When he went to where his boat was tied, he found that his boat was no longer there. It had disappeared. Seeing this, John was stunned because he had tied the boat very securely. Now a strange thing happened. John saw that all the fog around had cleared and the sky had become completely clear. It was now noon, and seeing no ship around, having no other option, he stayed there. John was stuck there. So to get out, he tried to find his way using a map. From the map, John learned where he was and how to return home. But the biggest problem was that the ship's engine was broken, so to save his life and return home, he first had to fix the engine. Then John kept trying to fix the ship's engine. After much effort, at one point the ship's engine started up. After so much hardship, finding a way home, that is, the ship starting up, was a great success for John. Since the ship was running again, John could now take it wherever he wished. But here he ran into a big problem. John couldn't find the way. So he went back to the control room and tried to contact headquarters again. But he couldn't get any response. This disappointed John and he came back upstairs. After coming upstairs, John needed to use the bathroom. He looked around and couldn't see any bathroom. So he decided to relieve himself right there. While John was doing this, suddenly someone pushed him from behind and knocked him down. But John narrowly escaped falling into the water because he had grabbed the ship's railing. The wind pressure there was intense. With great difficulty, John managed to get up. Without panicking, with great confidence, he tried slowly and with much effort. As a result, he escaped death this time too. Due to this incident, John's bathroom task wasn't completed. So John went inside and went straight to the washroom. As soon as John entered the washroom, suddenly someone closed the washroom door. Hearing the sound, John looked back but didn't pay much attention. He thought perhaps it had closed due to the wind pressure. When John finished his business and was about to go outside, he saw that the door was locked from the outside. John began using various tricks to open the door. John had a coin in his pocket. He tried to open the door with it. But that trick didn't work either. Nothing could open the door for John. It kept occurring to John that someone was on this ship who was playing this same game with him and torturing him mentally. John started shouting, "Open the door. I didn't come here to steal anything. Believe me. I only came to see if anyone was on this ship." But despite saying all this, no one from outside responded to John's words. So whatever had to be done, John had to do himself. John found a cabin there, and upon opening that cabin, he saw that there was blood inside. But even seeing this, John didn't pay much attention. He took out a pair of scissors that were in the cabin and tried to open the door again. But despite much effort, John couldn't open the door. Meanwhile, the ship kept running continuously, which completely frustrated John. Suddenly, John's eyes went to the washroom window, where looking outside, John could see a cargo ship coming in this direction, heading straight toward the ship. Seeing this, John understood that if that ship continued coming toward his ship like this, his ship would be completely destroyed, and if that happened, he himself would die. So to save his own life, John wanted to send some kind of signal to that cargo ship. But he was trapped here. How would he send a signal? Still, John figured out a way and took off his t-shirt and started signaling to the cargo ship with his hand. But even with this, no one on the ship could see John. The ship kept coming closer. Now, no matter what, John had to save his own life. To save himself, John absolutely needed to stop that ship somehow. If he couldn't stop the ship, it would destroy his ship. Suddenly, John saw a rope above the window, and an idea came to his mind. To stop the ship, John threw the rope outside so that the ship could be blocked. But there an accident happened to John. Unfortunately, that rope got tangled with the ship's propeller, and the remaining part of the rope got stuck around John's neck. As a result, John's throat was being squeezed and he was almost half dead. But with great effort, John managed to free his neck from the rope using another tool, and due to this pressure, John's neck turned red. Once again, John narrowly escaped death. Although John escaped by getting out of the rope, because part of the rope got wrapped around the ship's propeller, the ship wouldn't move. It got stuck right there. Even after doing so much, nothing happened. The cargo ship collided with John's ship. This made the ship's condition even worse, and John hit his head and lost consciousness right there. After some time, he regained consciousness and saw that water had entered the washroom. John saw that this was not dirty seawater but clean water, which made it seem like someone was there who was deliberately doing these things to frighten or kill John. Seeing this, John began shouting again, "Whoever you are, help me." John kept saying this repeatedly, but still no one responded to his words. A lot of time had passed, and John felt hungry and thirsty again. After so much effort, John's body became very weak. Having no other option, John drank water from the washroom's water tap. But John saw that the water there had run out. Then when he tried to drink the water on the floor, he noticed that all that water was salty, meaning it was seawater. Now John realized that a hole had formed in this ship, through which so much water had entered. And if it kept coming in like this, the ship would slowly sink. Thinking about all this, John now began trying to open the door. The door had been locked in such a way as if someone had locked it from outside. This way, afternoon turned into night. And right then, a scene was shown above the ship, which made it seem like someone invisible was driving the ship. And this meant that there was some evil power on the ship. Meanwhile, water kept filling up and started rising to the top. Meanwhile, the exhausted John, thinking so much, fell asleep. When night grew deep, a storm arose in the sea. Due to this storm, the ship suffered much damage, and John was severely injured. The next morning when John woke up, he saw that the water had risen so high that it was up to his mouth and everything had sunk. Now John accepted that he would probably die within a short time. Suddenly, John heard a clicking sound, and upon hearing it when he turned the door handle, he saw that the door had opened, because due to the excessive water pressure in the room, the door had broken and fallen outward, and through this, John got some freedom. Coming out of there, John first went up and took in the oxygen from the air, because there was a great lack of oxygen in the closed room, which was making him weak. John understood that there was someone here who wanted to cause him suffering, and John couldn't endure more torture. Along with this, he knew that water was filling up below the ship and the ship would sink at any moment. So John didn't want to endure any more torture. Then he decided he wouldn't stay on this ship anymore. Then an idea came to his mind. John took the broken door from that ship and some airbags, tied them all together well, and made a small raft so that John could escape from here. But he couldn't go like this. So John took a pole from that ship to row the raft, along with some things to eat, and came down to that raft. Getting on this raft, John slowly began moving forward. But that ship was still in the same place, stationary right in front of the raft. Hours passed like this. But John saw that the ship was still in the same condition. John was amazed, because with so much water coming in, he had thought the ship would sink within 10 to 15 minutes, but it didn't happen. Seeing this, John didn't proceed further. John thought since the ship hadn't sunk yet, it probably wouldn't sink. John thought if that hole could be fixed, perhaps he could leave here faster. So he returned to that ship again. John first returned to the ship and fixed the hole that had formed in it, and then built a pump machine with which he drained all the water that had come into the ship back into the sea. After doing these things, John slowly began fixing all the problems on the ship, and thus the ship was completely repaired. So that John wouldn't face any more problems during the journey, he repaired the ship from outside very thoroughly. After finishing all the work, John now went to the control room and asked for help, but as always, he didn't get any response this time either. John came upstairs and took out the map he had and tried to find the way. And when he tried to operate the ship, he saw that the ship wasn't running this time. Seeing this, John became disappointed again. John was becoming frustrated this way. But suddenly, John saw a ship in the distance. Upon seeing it, to save his own life, John got onto the small raft he had made and quickly started heading toward that ship. At that moment, that big ship suddenly started up on its own, and it began coming toward John so fast as if it would crush him to death. Seeing this, when John increased his speed, that ship also increased its speed. Seeing this, to save himself, John jumped from the raft into the sea before the ship could hit the raft, and began swimming, and went to that place. But John saw that by now that ship had left. Now John fully understood that there was some evil power in that ship that didn't want to let John go away from it. But now John decided that he was willing to die in the water, but he wouldn't get on that ship anymore. This way, evening came and the temperature here began to drop. As a result, the water also began to get very cold. And there were many dolphins in the water here too. So having no other option, John now climbed onto that ship. John's body had become so bad that he no longer had the strength even to think. John wrapped himself in a blanket and went to a room and fell asleep. The next day, waking up from sleep, when he tried to escape again, he saw that the door of that room was locked. Seeing all this, John now became disappointed and couldn't understand what was actually happening to him. John suddenly saw a small cabin in that room and saw that there was a path going up from there, and there John also found a skylight that he could open to get out of there. John entered that cabin from the room, and there was very little space because that place was a storage area. And through this storage area, John repeatedly tried to climb up from there. And while trying to climb up, he kept falling and getting hurt. He kept trying this way repeatedly. Still, John didn't give up. And going up, John tried to open that skylight. But John couldn't do it in any way. It seemed as if that skylight had been sealed. A lot of time passed, and the oxygen level there decreased. But the door to enter the room wasn't opening so that he could go back to the room. John thought that now he would probably die from lack of oxygen. Now, before the oxygen level ran out, he strangely heard a clicking sound there, and the cabin door opened. As soon as the door opened, John ran out from there and saw that this ship had gotten stuck on an island. Seeing this, John now gained a little courage. Seeing the island, it was as if his soul returned to John's body. John thought, whatever happens, at least I'll be free from this devil's ship. When the ship came to the shore, John got down from there onto the island. John thought that perhaps some person on this island was controlling that ship, and that person was the one torturing John. For this reason, John took a rod in his hand and began searching for the person there. But when John searched thoroughly around, he realized that there were no people on the island. After seeing all this, when John returned to the shore, he saw that the ship that had brought him to this island was now leaving on its own. And seeing this, it seemed as if it was going out in search of its next victim. John became 100% certain that some evil power was at work in this island and ship. John had had a beautiful life, but this ship had put him in such a state. John kept searching everywhere and came to the highest point of that island, and from there John saw another island nearby and tried to see if anyone was there. But John couldn't see anything. Disappointed again, John kept wandering around the island, and at one point he saw that he had come to the place from where he had started his journey. And the amazing thing was that small boat was still tied up there as before. And when he had set out, all the people in that place were exactly as they had been before. It seemed as if nothing had happened. Seeing this, John began to think, were these his nightmares? But these events had actually happened in reality. Then who brought his boat here? And the mystery of this island remains. And the reason behind all these events that happened to John remains unknown. And with these mysteries, the movie ends here. So friends, what do you think? Is there really some evil power behind these events, or is it something else? Please let us know your opinions in the comments. From now on, I'll try to present different types of movies. Do you like watching different kinds of movies? Please do let us know in the comments.